Hey guys, Brian here from Better Chess Training, and today's video I thought I'd do something a little fun. I was cleaning out my bookshelf, and I thought I'd make a book list video. And uh, well, let's just go right into it. So the topic for today's video is the most instructive, or the top 10 most instructive game collections books from my bookshelf. Okay, so these aren't the most instructive game collections books ever, but they are among the books that I own that are specifically on my bookshelf. I do have other books on Kindle and Chessable and Forward Chess, but these will be the physical books that I have. So, to make this list, just to delineate it from other games collections, the focus is on instructive, that are books that are written to be instructive. So, I will show you, for example, a few books that did not make the list, but are also very good books. For example, The Life and Games of Mikhail Tal. Excellent book. I love it, but not necessarily written to be instructive, but to be sure, you will learn. Of course, you'll learn about something from studying one of the world champions. Another couple other books in that vein are Endgame Virtuoso by Magnus Carlsen. Another excellent book. I love this book as well, but they are game excerpts. So I'm trying to limit the list to books that are full game collections. Let's see, another one, kind of some of the biographical books. I just want to show you a few here that I thought were really good. Um, Kramnik, My Life in Games. Again, whenever you study one of the world champions, you will probably learn from it, but didn't quite fit the criteria. But this is also a very good book. Recommend that for more advanced players. Chess Duels by Yasser Seirawan, one of my favorite authors in general, but not necessarily written to be instructive, more sort of a storytelling, historical book. Again, very well written, but did not make the list. And um, Fire on Board, Shirov's Best Game. I wasn't sure about this. I don't think it was necessarily written to be instructive, but it's very good. But the problem with, not the problem, but his games are very complex. So it might be good for practicing like calculation and tactics and understanding tactics. But from an instructive standpoint, it's not quite, the prose is not quite written to be sort of a teaching tool. Okay. Couple others here that I just wanted to point out here. Oh, I forgot to bring my 60 Best Games by Bobby Fischer, but I do have a couple Andrew Soltis books. 60 Memorable Games by of Magnus Carlsen and Bobby Fischer Rediscovered. Again, I think these are actually two of my favorite books in general, but again, not quite written, more written from a. I didn't find the prose to be like, here's how you play chess. It's more like, here's how Bobby Fischer and Magnus Carlsen play chess. But again, of course, these books are instructive, and Andrew Soltis is such a good writer. The nice thing about those two books is they're more recent, so have the benefit of the chess engines. One final one I want to just show you here is Lasker's Greatest Chess. Actually, two more I'm going to show you. Lasker's Greatest Chess Games. I found this at a used book sale, and this was written by Fred Reinhold and Ruben Fine. These older books, I think, were written to be instructive, but besides being, I think this one is in descriptive, which you should learn how to read. I think, in any case, it shouldn't be a hampering. I could read descriptive just as well as algebraic, but the how should I say? It was written in a different style. It's kind of hard to. Maybe I'll make a different video about it, but different way of looking at it. The only and one that didn't quite make the list, but is Positional Decision Making in Chess by Boris Gelfand. This was written to be instructive, and I think it is very instructive. But I think you need to be almost 2,000 plus to fully get the most out of it. And I would say that I have a couple of I have one of his other in this series on positional or on tactical chess, on forward chess. I think with his books, I think unless you're already a pretty strong player, I would put myself a little below the category that I think would benefit most from this type of book. So I have it in my library, but it's not one of the top 10. Okay, so I spent a few minutes showing you some of the other books in my list. So let's get started. And again, the main criteria here is instructive value, which would also include the selection of the games, the quality of the annotations, and I think the general theme or goal of the book. Is it accomplishing what it set out to do? So I will go through these one by one, and hopefully we'll have a little fun talking about it. What I'd love is a discussion. So in the comments below, tell me what your top 10 is, maybe from your bookshelf, or tell me if you disagree with the way I ordered these. Of course, keep it respectful, and let's have some fun with this today. That's sort of my idea behind this video, is to have a little fun. Okay, number 10. I bought this book in the Philippines when I was picking up my daughter we adopted from the Philippines a few years ago. And it is Steve Gibbs' 50 Essential Chess Lessons. I actually think he has a couple books like this, like 50 lessons. But I thought it was very good. The idea here, he was following up from another book written by John Nunn, which might show up later in the list. But his idea was to look at different areas of chess. And let me just look at here in the kind of in the same vein that John Nunn does, except that he doesn't do it move by move. Attacking the king, defense, piece power, pawn structure. And I think he does a very good job. One of his criteria for selecting the games was to find some more recent games, although there are some older games here too. For example, from 1912, Rubinstein game. Let's see, what else? 1925, he has a game from Lasker. And this book was written in 2006, or published in 2006. So he had some sort of later 20th century games here, but also some more modern games. He's got Karpov in here. But his idea was to also find a few masters that maybe weren't as well known, like Samagin, for example. But of course, he's got like Fischer, he's got Kasparov. Overall, I enjoyed the books. I enjoyed his selection of games. Okay, this next one is a classic, actually. It's a series, but I only have the first one here, and it's Mastering the Endgame by Shereshevsky and Slutsky. And what he does here is, and this is the open and semi-open games, but he talks about the end games that result from various openings. And so you can see he has Sicilian defense, Roy Lopez, French defense, Carol Khan, the Perk. And it's not an openings book. It's actually so the variations here are very old. This particular one was let me see if I can find out when this was published. This was let's see. This was published. This translation was published in 1991, but I think that it was written much earlier. And the games themselves are very nice, and he really goes into I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to kind of show it to you. Look at how much text there is between the moves. You can see he wrote to kind of instruct here. Let me see if I can find for example, right here, White has created a pair of far advanced connected pass pawns, which players usually call self-propelled, since they can advance the queen square. And then he basically goes through and shows how that gets converted. But I'm not done reading. I haven't read this whole book, but the games that I have studied in here, I think the annotations are very good, well selected. And because it's talking more about strategy, and Shereshevsky also wrote the famous Endgame Strategy, which I recommend too, but it's not a full game collection, so that's why it doesn't get included in this list. But this one shows the opening and how it builds into the end game with like pawn structures and typical end game. So what I think it's very good, especially if you play the openings that are in in these books. But I guess in the whole series, he kind of covers almost all of the opening, at least the structures. Okay, so that's number 9. Number 8 is, and again, I didn't spend a whole lot of time ordering these. I kind of did do I like this one better than this one? Which one's more instructive? But all 10 of these I think are great. Is a classic. You probably have seen, I've talked about Irving Chernev in some of my articles and other videos, but it's Capoblanca's Best Chess Endings. And this is 60 complete games. And I got this used. Again, I love getting, I love these old books. This one is in algebraic. And what's great about it, he kind of has some light annotations over the beginning of the game, and then he'll have the ending one. So what I do here sometimes is I'll cover up the moves, and I'll set up the pieces, and I'll try to guess the move, and it helps me to learn it. But Capoblanca, of course, along with Karpov and now Carlsen, Smyslov, among the greatest endgame players, and of course one of the greatest players ever. So studying his games would be very beneficial for you. But Irving Chernev, Capoblanca's Best Chess Endings, number 8 on my list. Okay, some people might disagree with this, and it's kind of a mix whether this counts as a game collection book, but it is Simple Chess by Michael Steen. And he, I know Neil Bruce has talked about this. This has been reviewed on the Perpetual Chess podcast. And I like it a lot. It's very it's not super deep, and the variations weren't engine checked. I don't think. I think this book was written. Let's see here. When was this book written? I think the first edition was out in 1978. Copyright 2002, also by Michael Steen. So it's an older book. But the idea is not to get like all of the deep analysis, but is to understand the different concepts. But he's showing the whole game and how you build up those things. So for example, he talks about outpost, weak pawns, open files, half open files, but he uses whole games. Sometimes it's not the whole game. Sometimes it is the excerpt. But I would still count this among a game collection, illustrating different points. And I thought it was very good. So where am I in my list? Let's see, 10, 9, 8, 7. Number 6. Okay. Number 6, again, as you know, I am an Irving Chernev fan, but this one only comes up number 5 here, or number 6. The most instructive games ever played, 62 pieces, masterpiece of chess strategy. And again, this one isn't the descriptive, although I do think they have an algebraic version available. Again, don't let that stop you. I talk about this a lot, but it's very important, I think, if you're going to study important chess literature, to learn descriptive notation, because there's a ton of books that are only in descriptive that are that are great out there. But that's just my opinion. And this one's great. He chooses different games, and a lot of these are all earlier games, though. I think the latest game here, let me see. The latest game I can see from first glance is 1961, Petrosian versus Smyslov. There might be a later one. And then he's got a lot of 19th century games. And as you've seen from my channel, I think those 19th century games by those early masters were important to study as well. And so he's got a lot of those in here. I think his style of writing is very playful, very entertaining. And again, yes, this wasn't engine checked, but you get the concept of how to take an outpost, how to take advantage of certain pawn structures, how to make certain pieces better. And that's what you want to get from these older games and from these instructive game collections, is how the feeling of where these pieces should go. And I think if you study a book like this, that would be great. By the way, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description down below to all of these books, so you can get them on Amazon. Of course, if you click that link and purchase the book, it does help the channel, but that's just full disclosure. Okay, we're now in our top half of the books, And again, this is sort of just a fun list because this doesn't even include all the books that I own, just the books that happen to be on my bookshelf. I've got a box. I think I counted. I had exactly 50 books on my bookshelf, but I know I've got like a dozen forward chess books and well, a couple dozen chessable courses and probably 5 to 10 um, books on chess books on Kindle. So, and then I think I have. My wife told me I had a box in the closet full of chess books too. But, anyways, hopefully some of these books you'll find interesting. This one is one of my favorite books, but as specifically Instructive Game Collection, it only comes in number 5th, and this is The Road to Chess Improvement. And I discussed this book with Ben Johnson on the Books Recaptured podcast, part of the Perpetual Chess podcast. But I just love this book. The binding here is about to tear apart because I've studied this book so much. There's pages that have fallen out of this. But basically, what he does have other games from other players. Is that Alex Yermolinsky, one of the great American chess grandmasters from the 90s, wrote a book. It wasn't his best games. It was his most instructive games. And I would subtitle this, How to Analyze Your Games for Improvement. Because he goes into these games and he's very honest about the mistakes he made and the lines that he saw here. And he also adds some instructive commentary. Let me see if I can find one really neat here from one of his mistakes. So what I'm doing is just looking here. Let's see. Well, I can't really find one, but you can just see here he has a lot of text. He does have a lot of analysis. A lot of the engines back then were not as strong, but I think he did use them to check over his things, over his analysis. But the point is, again, the analysis itself, the moves, they are important, of course, but is the ideas that he expresses here. And I wish I could just find one off the bat. I should have done a little more research here. But let's see. Well, here he talks about one of his moves here. And he gives himself a check mark, but he talks about the 3 things he accomplishes. Let me just read this real quick. Achieving 3 things in one move. A, the D file is now open for the black rook. B, in turn, the queen is overburdened by defending the rook on E2. And C, black is hitting the B2 pawn, forcing his maneuver. He's talking about a specific move here, but he just goes on and he talks about the ramifications of each move. And it's really... this is one of the earlier books about kind of getting into the mind of a top player, but he's not afraid to show his losses. He's not afraid to show, he's showing you these were sort of important games in his development that taught him certain things. And it's a great book. If you don't have this book already, I would actually get, there is a Chessable course on this with the video. I do not have that yet, but I would almost get that with the video just to get, the only way I would get it is with the video is because Yermolinsky actually would go over it. Otherwise, I would get the book. This is one of those cases where it's not about memorizing specific variations that you would using Chessable, but would be about actually just enjoying and learning from his commentary. Okay, number 4. This is probably not a well-known book at all, but I'm not sure. It's not a famous book, but it is a book from an author that I think is underrated, and it is Strategic Chess, Mastering the Closed Game by Edmar Mendes. And Edmar Mendes, he used to write wrote a column for Chess Life way back when. I think he has since passed away. But he is a contemporary, I believe, of Fischer. So he's an older gentleman, was an older gentleman. But this book was written, let me see when this book was, copyright 1993. And the idea behind this, now this one, he actually is proposing, maybe not totally explicitly, but he's implying that you study the ideas behind the openings, and then you don't have to memorize so many variations, okay? And even though I don't play the closed, I don't play D4 now with, this is mainly, from studying the games, it's mainly for D4 players. And he basically goes over a lot of the major variations. Now, the actual variations themselves are maybe a little dated, but the ideas, a lot of them, I think, carry over to modern chess. I mean, he goes over to Benko Gambit, Catalan, Slav, Tarrasch, Queen's Indian, the Grunfeld, the King's Indian. But I believe he's covering it more from the white side. And he uses a lot of his own games. Not that and he says here, not that his games were the best, but because he knows them and what he was thinking, and he explains it. I think this, I was a little biased because it's not a very famous book. Like some of these, Road to Chess Improvement, everybody has heard of that book. So maybe I would have put this even higher, but some of the books I have earlier are more well known, maybe, because I just love the way he talks about in these openings about different pawn structures. Let me just read a text just from one of his comments here. The inherent disadvantage of the c3, c4, d4 pawn structure, magnified by the erroneous 10d5, is now obvious. Once black captures on c4, material will be equal, but white will be handicapped by having isolated A and C pawns. But then you'll see in the rest of the game, so this is from the 16th move of the game that comment was from, but the rest of the game will show how those disadvantages get exploited. Okay, sorry, I got a phone call in the middle of that review. But so I really enjoyed this book. I've read maybe about 10 of the games in here. And even though I'm not using it for my repertoire, the ideas carry over into a lot. I mean, they're just beautiful games too. I mean, he's got games, Karpov is in here, Korchnoi. Let's take a look here. There's some Ulf Andersson, Pogaevsky. Like I said, there's a bunch of his games, but he's got a lot of players. Christensen, great American player. Hodgson, so we have some more players. These are some of the games from the 80s and 90s, as well as some older games. I think this is a great game collection in and of itself, but very specifically, if you do play D4, I think it's a great primer on some of the strategic concepts in a lot of the openings there. Again, it is a little dated, so the variations you might want to update with databases and your different courses, but the explanation of the ideas, I think, is one of the best books I've seen, at least in my collection. Okay, we're at the top 3 now, and these ones I had a hard time ordering which one was first, second, and third, but I'll give you my specific reasons, and I think these are books that I can say almost anyone under master level can learn something from, and they are kind of aimed at different rating levels, so I will go into that a little bit. So let's start with number 3, and it is Winning Chess Brilliancies by Yasser Seirawan. There is a Chessable course on this. I do not have the Chessable course, but Winning Chess Brilliancies, Yasser Seirawan, it's only, is it 12 or 10 games? 12 games. It's only 12 games, so it's not very many, but look how thick this book is. Every single move, pretty much, I think, except for maybe some recaptures, let's see here. Every single move has commentary after it. And the key here is that he explains the different squares and what everything means. And he really is writing for a beginner level player. I think anyone, say, over rating of like even 1,000 and up that wants to improve their game can improve from this. Okay, got another phone call here while I was reviewing this. But just getting back to this, Chess Brilliancies, I think even as a stronger player, they're just great games. I mean, we have Kasparov in here. We've got Karpov in here. We've got Korchnoi. You've got a lot of the big, the big hitters back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. And a couple Seirawan games, too, which are very nice as well. So check this out. This is number 3. Let's go on to number 2. And this probably is number 1 on a lot of people's list. It is Understanding Chess Move by Move by John Nunn. And this sort of was like a other than Chernev's Logical Chess Move by Move, this was like the first modern move by move book. Now they have a lot of move by move books here, but this was, I believe, the first one that kind of said, "Hey, I'm going to explain how every move is played," and he does it. I think I have it as number 2 for a specific reason, is that he has great annotations and great text. So this is, look at that. That's the annotation for one move right there. But he does, actually, it goes on to the next page. Look at that. That's one move. Okay? It's like move 12. He's got that. It's not like that for every move. Sometimes he just says like, recapturing or something like that. But the games are great. Very nice games. They are all fairly modern games. And not modern in that I think they're all, let me see if I don't know if it says here. It doesn't have, let me just look up one of the games here. They're all from like the 90s. I think this book was written like right at 2001. So all of these games are from the 90s. At the time, they used the engines to check them. And I think the game selection is the big strength of this. The annotations are also very good. Now, here is the one reason why it's not number 1, and you'll see that when I show you my number 1 pick, is that it is more describing what the moves are doing. You know, for example, it'll show a move and then he describes why the move is made. Of course, that's incredibly important. But unlike the 01 and then the number 1 books, which I'll get to, he's not necessarily teaching you. It's hard to kind of describe this, but he's not saying he's not really coaching you with the book. He's more showing you this is how chess works. Obviously, that's very important. It is number 2 on the list, but I'm going to show you number 1 second. Anyways, if you don't have this book, get it. I think it is still. There are a bunch of like move by move books that came afterward. I think this was the prototype, and I think one of the best. Okay, number 1 book. And the reason I picked this as number 1 is I do feel that if you were to study this book, and again, it's for a certain rating level, which I'll get to, I do think, and you follow along with it, that you will improve a lot in your chess, at least in the aspects that he goes over. And this is an old version, The Best Lessons of a Chess Coach by Sunil Weeramantry and Ed Eusebi. It's only 10 games. I think he might have a more expanded edition that came out recently. But if you read each one, basically in each game, he will ask you questions. Okay, it's kind of like what I do in my videos. Sometimes he'll say, "Well, what would you do if you did this?" And then at the end of each game, he will review he'll have a review of the themes. And then he'll actually have supplementary games where you can actually play out games that have similar themes to those in the main lesson game. He has guidelines and advice. It's like he's like you're hiring. I mean, obviously he is a great chess coach, but it's like he's coaching you personally. If you go through and you answer all his questions and you try to study everything that he has in here. The game selection, there's only 10 games, but there's a couple famous ones in here, like the Rudikovsky Smyslov game in the Sicilian that has been repeated in several books and videos and stuff. And I think I might have made a video on it too. But this, I think, is the most instructive game collection book that is on my bookshelf. And if there are other books that are sitting in a box in my closet, I do apologize that I did not pull those out. But if you get any of these 10 books, by the way, this book, I think it's important to be about 1,200. Kind of understand basic tactics and strategy already. Because some of the questions we'll ask are, calculating different things and can be kind of deep. But the stronger you are, I don't know if there's a top level. If you're a master already, maybe you won't find as much use for it. But even I think I got this when I was like 1400, and I restudied some of the games like last year, and so I think if you are 1200 to say 2000, you'll get a lot out of this book. In any case, I hope you enjoyed that discussion. Again, in the comments, feel free to leave any comments about what you think about my list. And otherwise, thanks. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. It was fun for me to make, and hopefully you found it helpful. I know I kind of rambled on a little bit. I didn't really prepare too much other than making the book list. But let me know if you want to hear other kind of book lists like that. I kind of got the idea from I enjoy reading sci-fi, and I enjoy the some of the sci-fi book list here on YouTube. So, anyways, if you're not already a subscriber to the channel, you can hit down below. I do have reviewed other books and like Chessable courses, and you can find a link to that over there. Check those out. And again, I'll have the Amazon links down in the description for the books that were on this list. So I hope you check them out. Otherwise, happy chess reading, and I'll talk to you soon.